would you mind sharing with us what do you do? Obviously, just to kind of get a baseline. What started you on this journey of helping others in this kind of way, and anything else
Yeah,
you want?
sure. Yeah, so I actually started a career in social work
Mm-hmm.
as a youth worker. So I came straight out of university
Mm-hmm.
and into working with young men incarcerated in youth prison
Yeah.
back in Melbourne when I was living in Australia. And these are young people, not just young men in prison, but I was working with homeless young people. I
Mm-hmm.
was working with young people with severe mental health issues, with intergenerational drug addiction and
Yeah.
unemployment. And I very, very quickly found out that I did not have the internal skills. And when I say that, the inner resilience, mental, emotional resilience,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the ability to do self-care, like
Mm-hmm.
as you said, setting those boundaries, that when you get home you look
Yeah.
after yourself, you're in home mode and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I did not have those skills when I started out, and I very, very quickly found myself chronically stressed, probably a couple of years into my career.
Mm-hmm.
um, I was chronically stressed. I was anxious every single day. And I was very quickly heading towards burnout,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And the stress wasn't just affecting me mentally and emotionally, but I mean, the first thing that really happens is that you feel it physically.
Mm-hmm.
And long-term stress can create loads of problems
Mm-hmm.
in your body because you are basically in fight, flight, and freeze mode. You are in survival mode when you are
Yeah.
stressed out all the time. And it means there's a lot of functions in your body that shut down because your mind doesn't think they're necessary. One
Yeah.
of these things is your digestive system, which is,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I learned the hard way. I couldn't digest anymore. And if you
Yeah.
can't digest your food, you can't process all the nutrients that your body needs to
Yeah.
keep you going and keep you doing your work, keep
Mm.
you focused and present. So I basically spent thousands of dollars in therapy, with medical bills,
Mm.
naturopaths, to get myself back on track. And I don't want other women, because in social work it's mainly women.
Mm.
I was seeing women in my industry burn out.
Mm.
Um, very, yeah, a lot basically, and it means that you're leaving vulnerable people behind that count on you.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I see a very similar pattern for women entrepreneurs. I work
Yeah.
with a lot of purpose-driven female entrepreneurs who are so passionate about doing good in the world, helping others.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that pattern. It's the same pattern. There's a study done in 2019 that actually came out with the stat that 79% of female entrepreneurs are dealing with a really high level of work stress.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a lot of research showing that female bosses are more likely of falling into depression than male bosses. So, there's it's
Yeah.
not really good news for for female bosses and female entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I come in. This is where my passion really lies. That we desperately need a different way
Mm-hmm.
to live and work,
Yeah.
where the whole human being is taken into consideration,
Yeah.
and that we as individuals put ourselves first, like our mental and emotional well-being, not just the physical stuff.
Yeah. So, what did you see? Like, just as a talking, what did you see was one of the most common threads that were causing, like, the stumbling? Like I said, I'm in social work. I see it too. I see people who. One thing I learned real quick was you can't save everyone. A lot of times my best moments with my clients is just hearing them. is talking to them. I have nothing to give them. I have nothing to say positive that I could, or any resource, but just being present. But what did you see with the ones, in your social work, but also in entrepreneur when it comes to women? What are the most common stumbling blocks that you see are present that cause them to go to the burnout phase or even beyond?
To go straight to the deeper level, I would definitely say that there is a very common trend in women, and then women who have this passion to help others, and that is really, it's a question of worthiness.
Okay.
And a question of feeling unworthy. So they have something that they want to give, and they give and they give and they give, and this doesn't matter if you're in social work or you're in entrepreneurship. But they themselves do not feel worthy of being supported or being helped. I also see this pattern of not feeling that what they're giving has enough value. So therefore, there is this urge to give and give and give without regard for their own well-being, right? And I see this so often that it's, we can't. And when you're in that mode, you can't see the bigger picture. You can't see, if you don't look after yourself. You are, in the case of being in business, you are your business.
Yeah.
And your business is not going to survive long term if the captain, or the creatrix or the person in charge doesn't fill her own cup.
Yeah.
And before she gives. So this is something I see very often, and the beginning of the work that I do when I first start working with someone is really to create this mindset that you are important, that you are worthy. Anything that you give to other people, you are worthy of receiving that and so much more. And we really start very basically with self-care, with actually take 1 minute, take 1 minute off every hour, and see how that gives you more calm, more energy, more focus, more presence. We start very, very, very simply and very basically.
Observe a hobby. All these kind of weird questions you ask yourself. And in South Africa, there's this word called Ubuntu. It actually says, I find my worth in you and you find your worth in me. It's this collective. Like you said, we all kind of, as much as we don't like to admit it, and I also like how you dress, we like to point the finger. And I think that's a lot of times, from my experience, it's fear. It's like, I don't want to be wrong. It's so, they don't ask the question, is it more important to be wrong or is it more important to grow? And when it comes to these kind of situations, I've come to the realization in the last few months that accountability is not a bad word if you're in a safe place. And that's where the positive, and that's why it's, I'm adamant, if you're around people who don't have your best interests, maybe they're just not in the right part of their lives, and you don't have to be rude or anything, but it's about building that support. What would you say to someone listening right now who's fighting a similar fight to you today? Anything you want to share, Terry?
I just say keep going, and you're looking at me right now. There's no S on my chest. I don't wear a cape. I have bad days just like everybody else. I cry, I get down, I get depressed. And when I do, I think of two stories. And one was about a professor at Johns Hopkins University back in the 1950s who did a very simple experiment. He took rats, and trust me, this is going somewhere. I was like, what's he talking about rats for? He took rats and he put them in a tank of water that was over their head. And he wanted to see how long the rats would tread water. So initially, the rats tread water for about 15 minutes. And just as they're ready to get to sink and to drown, he reaches in, grabs the rats, pulls them out, dries them off, lets them rest for a while. And then he puts them back in that exact same tank of water. And the second time around, on average, the average rat treads water for 60 hours. Think about that. First time, all I can do, 15 minutes and I'm going to drown. I'm going to give up. I'm going to die. Second time around, 60 hours, which says to me two things. Number one, the importance of hope in our lives. We have to have hope. We have to believe our lives are going to get better. We have to believe that we're working for something else. And as I said before, I'm on this clinical trial drug, probably not going to save my life, but I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for other people who I may never even know, and for my colleagues who I'm hoping to keep their legacy alive as well. So the importance of hope in our lives, we have to have that. And then number two, just how much more our physical bodies can handle. And I remember when I was on interferon, and I mean, I was so sick, and I was so sick of being sick that I prayed to die. I literally asked God, like, please, just take me. I am so sick of this, but he didn't. But what he did do for me is gave me the strength, gave me the power to continue to move forward, to continue to go on. And, you know, sometimes we talk about winning the day, you know, and I know I felt that, and I'm sure the people who have cancer, you know, I just got to get through today. To me, that was winning the day. How am I going to win this day? And sometimes winning that day was winning just this little bit. I've just got to get out of bed, and I've got to make it to the couch. So you have the grit inside you. You have everything you need to be successful in life already inside you. You just need to find it, pull it out, and use it for your advantage.
And I want to ask you, in recovery, it can be messy. What have you seen work in your experience when resources are nil, not there? Maybe, you know, families are protected. What if they're not available? On your journey, in your own experience, what has kind of, you know, helped you? This is a lot of times they try to build coping skills or something like that. The wellness wellness recovery action plan, whatever it is, they try to build that just in case these rainy days. What has helped you in this journey?
I think what helped me is obviously when I worked as a recovery worker in rehabs, I've said this to a lot of my clients as well, and to myself, is once you hit that road in recovery, there's no end stop. Like it's not like one day after like 20 years, you're like, my recovery ends. The minute you hit recovery, it's a lifelong thing. So your whole life, from the day you realize that you need to start recovery, needs to change. So what worked for me is once I started putting my mental health first, is everything from my past I changed. The people I was hanging around with, I was really selective on the people that continued to be in my life. Even though it's as hard as it was, because these people I was friends with since I was 12 and I'm 26 now. And it was hard. It was a hard decision to make, but it's putting myself first. I had to do it because the people pleasing and putting other people's needs before mine was destroying me. So it was changing everything. Like I grew up in East London, but I moved to Northampton afterwards because I just needed a whole new clean slate. And now I have very good friends that I trust with all my heart. I'm very selective of family members, because obviously in our culture it's like family before anything, and you have toxic family members in your life because you had to. But I had to make that choice of like, I have to put my needs first.
I'm not as progressed as I've become in my diagnosis. I still have to baby step through my days sometimes when it's just like so overwhelming to me that I'm like, I can't even do that much. And it's like, yes, you can. You just have to get out of bed. You got to get on a pair of shoes. You just got to do that. And it's like, and once you start that progression, it's easy. It's not easy, but it follows. You know, everything follows the next step. So you have to take the first step in order to get to the second step. It's very basic, but it's not always easy. I'm not going to downplay it.
I just, you know, again, I appreciate the conversation. I think leaning into hard topics like this is important. I think that, you know, the discomfort we feel around mental health or talking about difficult things is actually a sign that this is important. We all know that we can't grow within our comfort zones. And so leaning into things that don't necessarily feel good normally, you know, yield some nice results down the road. And so just encourage people just to, lean into that stuff, have this conversation. And, you know, when you do, just remember that we're all human beings with, you know, interesting, traumatic, funny backgrounds. And that's a good thing. That's what really makes our community a diverse and special place.
Joel?
Yeah, and just to add that, get yourself active in a community. If you're not involved in one, there's plenty to join. There's plenty groups to join. There's plenty civic things to do. Serving others is a big component of that. When you serve others, you're actually helping yourself more than others, right? And Rob, you know that. I mean, your story is linked. You and I are linked in our stories because of the time we served together, and that's led into both of us going, very different directions in our careers and our families, and yet our time. We're coming up on like almost a decade now of being in a friendship and of being part of your life, and you being part of my life in such a significant way that even if we don't talk every week, that we're able to pick it back up right on track, like when we need each other for something, right? Or if I need to confide in you, or you need to talk to me about something. Like just the other day, we were talking about a particular thing going on in your faith community, right? And we're able to talk about that in a significant way because we have a bond, right? Yeah. And our bond came through serving together. And if we don't create that bond, then in the future when you need to call on it, it's not there. Yeah. And so that's like just my final thought is get yourself involved in a significant, intimate community relationship where you're serving other people.
I want to ask you one last question before we kind of wrap up here. What drives you today to keep going? It's a lot. It's overwhelming. What keeps you going? Your children.
But when I was an addict, my children, people say they weren't enough. That's not true. I was still very, very sick. But after seeing my daughter survive cancer, trauma's trauma. And I want my kids and my daughter going to school, political science for equality. I must have done something right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so, and without getting too emotional, my kids, yeah. And my daughters, they're so strong. And I want them to know they can overcome anything, whatever it takes. I mean, writing a book is not easy, and I, just signed my contract, and we start printing in 2 weeks, and it'll be out in August. I go on book tour September 2nd, and it's been a rough 9 months, right? But I had to do it. It's just, that God gut. It nags and nags, and that kind of like probably with your podcast, it's like you got to do it. It's something that nags you. You can't even sleep. It nags at you. It nags at you. It nags at you. Yeah. Unless you want to drink or do drugs, which I don't want to do anymore. Yeah. It's going to keep nagging. So whatever that is, whoever's listening, whatever that is, that's nagging at you, there is enough room at the table for all of it. Yeah. Do it.
Thank you. And it's so amazing sharing in that journey and that realization. Sometimes it's just the little things, sometimes it's the huge things that you see people make changes with, and it is so rewarding to say, I'm so glad that person has made that step in their own life and they're finding that happy, because we so often aren't happy for whatever reason, and when someone can say I'm truly happy, that's amazing.
On anything that you want to share with those listening, what you're doing today, as we kind of wrap things up.
Well, I think one of the things I like to emphasize to people is it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens. You have to take 100% responsibility for your health and your stuff. You can't blame others for it. You can't be a victim, you have to be a victor. And you yourself have to take responsibility for that. So please do that. Get off your couch, start doing things that'll move you forward. Keep on going. And if you need help and resources, there's people out there that can help you. I do offer some help in some people's way. I no longer practice medicine, but I do coaching. I do help people in other ways. So people can turn to me on the website, drallenlycka.com. DRALLEN, Lycka, LYCKA.com. And if I can be of any further assistance in that, please let me know.
And I'm a yes guy. If somebody asks me to do something, I'm like, sure, I'll do it. And then I just started seeing this pile up. I started ignoring my family. I started ignoring, like I said, the warning signs, all this sort of stuff. So I had to set clear boundaries for myself, and I had to cut out things that were not the best use of my time, my energy, and my resources. And so those were the things that I think helped me heal the most. That and finding a way to forgive myself, that it was not my fault, that I was not a broken person, that this was a part of me, but it did not have to define me. So I had to find a way to forgive myself and love myself again, just in a new way. And that took some deep work. It is a process. It does not happen overnight. Meditation, I always tell people when I teach them meditation, I said, this does not happen overnight. You are not going to be an instant meditator overnight, because you are retraining your brain. It's just like any other muscle in our body. You can't expect to go into the gym and come out ripped looking like The Rock after one time, right? So it's a process, and it took me a good year to get that way. So meditation, supplements, eating right, exercising more. I did not exercise. I now go for daily walks. That helped me. And then finding a way to forgive myself and love myself again. Those were all huge for me.
As you should be. That is, our human science is very young. We know less than 10% of what's in our own oceans. We know more about what's on the surface of Mars. We know so very little, all things relative, in terms of our human body, that we are still learning about. Yet most people out there think that we know everything about everything. We're the smartest species ever. And so I encourage people to think for yourself. Rethink what you think you know, and go do some research, and go out online, see what the most current science says, and go look at the science. Find the respected websites that are backed up by science, that are backed up by quality content, right? And see what most people probably still think that a calorie is still a calorie, and it is not. A calorie is not a calorie. And there's many other scientific facts out there, right, that have changed over the years because we're learning and we're evolving, that many folks don't realize have changed. So yes, please go out and search and learn and figure out what the actual real truth is relative to the facts and the evidence, because it's what will truly make us all happy.
And I know I've mentioned this and we talked about this, but the title of this month is Building a Home. And I know we talked in all angles, but as we kind of reaching the end, what does this title mean to you today, currently? I know you mentioned a lot, but building home means many things for everyone, like we mentioned, but why do you think it's important, especially today, building a home?
Well, again, like I mentioned, God created us in his image, and God is love. We have this need inside of us to be loved and to give love. That's the way God designed us to be. So building a home, to me, what it means to me and why it's so important in the world today is, like the song says, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. And that world starts in my walls, in my home. To receive love and to give love. So that's what, again, the society is built on. It's what your community is built on. It's what a church is built on. Yeah. If the church doesn't have healthy homes, it's not going to be a healthy church. So again, what's it mean to me? We serve an amazing God.
Mm-hmm.
If people would give themselves an opportunity to see who God is and the beauty of who He is, and not often what's being conveyed through religion, because oftentimes that's a wrong picture of God. But if they give themselves an opportunity to see God for who He is, they'll see that He truly is love, and that love is irresistible. He knows everything about you. He knows everything about me, but He still loves us. And so God wants us to be the same with each other in building a home, that we know all of our faults and weaknesses of our spouse and our children. They know all my faults and weaknesses, but we still choose to love each other.
Yeah,
because we are a home, and that's the way God designed us to be. And that love, that unconditional love, is that taste of a joy and a peace, knowing that in spite of who I am, in spite of my own mistakes and faults, there's people who love me.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage everyone to build their home on God and on His ways. And if you're not a believer, that's your choice. Again, we respect that, but the principle is the same. Build your home on love, on other-centered love.
Since you're new to the listeners, I want to give you a little bit of time to share a little bit of your story. I know you wrote a book. I know it's that there's been a lot that you went through, but whatever you feel comfortable, the floor is yours to share. And all the book and all that links will be in the notes for those listening, so they can check out how to find more about you, Sarah. So go ahead.
Okay. Again, my name is Sarah M. I grew up in Cambodia. As a child, I was happy and I feel very loved by my parents. But when I attend college, I had to leave my family behind. And college is far away from home. While I was far away, the communist Khmer Rouge took over our country. They came in with madness, with resentment, with anger, and they came in to destroy us. I don't know what their original idea was, but when they came to power, they pretty much destroyed our country and destroyed our life. And I struggled for 4 long years in the forced labor camp. I lived with very little food and worked very hard, extremely hard, long hours. And I was exhausted and starved and seriously sick. I contracted several diseases. And when I was too sick to work, they sent me to an infirmary. And I was supposed to be in the infirmary waiting for the time to die. But with my love for my family, my mind was thinking about them all the time. And that was the life saving for me. I'm thinking about my family. I want to survive so that I can go back home.
How old were you during those 4 years? How old were you, if you don't mind me asking?
I was in my early 20s.
So I can't imagine, those who are listening, sometimes we forget, especially if you're in the States, that there's other countries out there. There's other things that people go through each and every day. And last month was building a home. The theme for November was building a home, because it's different from a home and a house. And you're mentioning your family was a big component of what kind of held you together. Was there anything else that you remember, and if you're comfortable in sharing, that helped you through those hard 4 years?
Through that hard 4 years, I remember that I had built friendship with the people that was in the same camp. We support each other. When I got very sick and I become blind at night. There was a condition, it's called a night blindness. When you are so lack of nutrition, you lose your sight at night. So without the help of my friend in the camp, I would have got lost. I would have wandered all over. But they helped me. And not only that, when at the end of 4 years, I have a courage to plan an escape.
You know, I can't imagine in your 20s to, you know, it couldn't be easy to make that decision. You had, what was the moment when you said, I need to get out, and what gave you the strength you feel to get through that? And you know, you mentioned you had people that supported you in there that were helping you, you know, with your, how many of you were there, if you don't mind me asking? I just find it's inspiring to hear, even that the most dire moments in a person's life, that they find the courage to do this. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
I got trapped in the camp that was for single women and men. Altogether in that camp was 1,000 people to start with. And by the end of 4 years, there was we probably have about 300 left.
Wow.
And the rest have just died or was taken away, whatever reason. There some people, they were just been taken away secretly.
I just, you know, it's just, I know, I just know that we hear these stories, you know, especially when we think about World War II and like the people who struggled during the time of the Holocaust and all that. And a lot of times to hear it from someone like yourself, it is truly inspiring to hear your, you know, in light of all this, you have a story of hope. What is the name of your book, so those who are listening could kind of
the name of my book?
Yes.
How I Survived the Killing Field: The Story of Hope, Love, and Determination. This is how my book looks like.
Okay. That's yeah, and all the link to find out more about, if you are interested in getting it and reading it, I do encourage you to. But it's inspiring, you know, your story. I'll tell you, Sarah, and I don't want to, you know, I want people to feel encouraged to read your book and kind of and to hear the whole story. But it is inspiring to kind of, throughout even the most dire, you were able to find hope, love, and determination. Is there anything else that you want to share briefly about that whole 4 years that kind of stood out to you, that you want to share with those listening today?
Yeah, at one point, the first couple months when I got very sick and they sent me to an infirmary, and I realized that I need to get out of that infirmary. I know if I stay in that infirmary, I would not survive, because that's the place where very sick people stay. And I already have a few conditions, a few disease in my body, and I will end up getting more disease from other people if I keep staying in there. So I realized that I need to get out from there. But where can I go? If I go back to the working place, I cannot do anything. I cannot work. My condition was too hard to work. And if I run away from the whole camp, I would not last. I don't have an energy to run away. So I remember when I was very young, my mom read the bedtime story for herself. It's an adult story. But in that story, there was a situation where a mean person grabbed somebody else's children and wife, and he took them into his possession and abused them. And it took God in heaven. God saw what happened. And he sent the angel to rescue the children and the woman. From this story, I make a decision. I said, there is God. God knows what's happening. And he's a good God. That's all I know. That's all I know. I don't know anything else. But I make up my mind that there is God. Now, in the infirmary, when I need to save my life, I need to do something to survive. And I cannot help myself. I remember that God. And I wait until nighttime and I pray. I ask God, please help me to survive. Please help me. I beg him every night. And then after a while, after many nights of praying, one morning when I woke up very early than usual, I felt like I have an extra energy. So maybe I'll try to walk out from the infirmary and go back to where the working people are staying. As I transition from the infirmary to the working place, when I got there, one kind team leader saw me, and she took me in her group and she said, you can stay with me and let me try to find something that you can do. In this camp, you cannot do nothing. You have to be able to do something. So when she realized that I'm too sick to do anything, she went to talk to the people at the kitchen. And then she came back to tell me that you can go to work in the kitchen. They can use your help. So it's just like, hallelujah. God answered my prayer in the most amazing way. Only God knows where I need to be.